Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This week we will be talking about cells. 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 Today we will be talking about the three cell theory. All living organisms are made up of cells, is our first theory. Now, to identify a living organism as a living organism or any organism as living, it must follow all 7 life processes, which are movement, respiration, sensitivity, growth, reproduction, excretion, and nutrition. Or you could remember this as Mrs. Gran. Movement is to move, so me moving my hand, plants do move. The sunflowers, they move along the sun throughout the day. So it's classified as a living organism. Respiration is the release of energy to breathe in and to break down our food that we take in and form energy from that is respiration. And yes, both plants and animals do those things. Our third one, sensitivity, is related to our 5 senses, so touch, sight, sound, smell, and taste. From this we respond to a stimulus, and plants do this too. So if vines do this, actually they move around the poles and all. So as a plant, they actually sense touch, and then they go round and round and round it. Growth. All animals and all living organisms grow. Animals grow to a certain height and weight, or a certain size in their stage of life. Whereas plants grow as tall or as big as they want to throughout their life, so they grow forever. Reproduction. Reproduction is the process of producing offsprings. So plants do this by seeds, and we as a mammal give birth to our young ones. Excretion. Excretion is to get rid of waste. So as a human, we go to toilets nowadays. Plants store their waste product in the leaf, and eventually that leaves fall off, and so the whole plant has gotten rid of the waste product accumulated in that leaf. Nutrition. Nutrition is to take in food. So we eat our lunch, dinner, and breakfast is nutrition. Plants do this by taking off minerals from the soil. So an organism must follow all these 7 life processes, or also known as Mrs. Gran, to be classified as a living organism. This theory of all living organisms are made up of cells was proven by Robert Hooke. He coined the term cells, and he observed cork from a homemade microscope. And so he has proven that all living organisms present on the cork had cells in them. Our second theory is that cells are the smallest units of life. And yes, they are things smaller than cells, known as organisms. Organelles. Organelles are present in cells. Organelles cannot survive alone, but they must work together in the cell to be able to contain life and do all these 7 life processes. So cells are actually the smallest thing you can ever find to have life in them. This was actually proven by Robert Brown, a Scottish botanist. He observed plant fertilization, and he observed that the smallest thing that contained life in them was a single cell. All cells come from pre-existing cells, our third theory. Meaning that our new cells and your current cells on your skin actually came from your older self. It's like saying our future self will come from our past self. This was proven by Louis Pasteur. He had 2 conical flasks, round flasks, and he boiled a nutrient brought in them. And what he did was he connected one to an S-shaped long tube and the other one to a smaller tube. And these tubes were acting as a pathway between the outer surroundings that contain the airborne microorganisms and the broth. So he boiled them to get rid of any existing micro or any living organism in them. And so from this tube, he actually made use that the smaller one was easily invaded by the airborne microorganism, and thus the flask contained microorganisms after a couple of days. Whereas the one with the S-shaped long tube, the microorganism could not travel as quickly as they did in this one. So after a couple of days, they were still in the tube, but they couldn't reach the broth, and so there were no organisms living in the broth. He did this to disprove the idea of spontaneous generation, which said that all living organisms come from non-living organisms, so they are spontaneously reproduced and made. So to end this, I would say that the three theories are that all living organisms are made up of cells. Cells are the smallest units of life, and all cells come from pre-existing cells. One way to remember the 7 life processes that classify an organism as living is Mrs. Grant. And an experiment to remember for proving one of these points is the Louis Pasteur experiment. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen. With this, I end my session today, and hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much.